And now I'm happy to turn over the microphone to the MC for the next section. Please welcome Lenny McAllister.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Lenny McAllister, and I want to welcome everybody in this room to the Saturday session of the Pennsylvania Leadership Conference. And as well, I want to thank and welcome everybody at home watching us on the Pennsylvania Cable Network. Thank you for joining us for another year of gathering the brightest minds and the finest leaders in Pennsylvania here at PLC. Now, of course, this is not my first PLC. Some of you may recognize me from the varying roles that I've been in over the years. My first PLC was 2014. And over the years, I've been a moderator, I've been a panelist, and even during the COVID year, I was a last-minute featured speaker when, unfortunately, this ballroom, unlike today, was completely cleared out, but we still gathered to share our conservative principles. And today, I'm very proud to be the MC of the Saturday session. Now, my background, for those of you that don't know me, includes my radio show on News Radio KDK every Sunday afternoon in my hometown of Pittsburgh. I've worked for years at the Commonwealth Foundation, where I both served as a director but also as a senior fellow. I'm the previous CEO of the Pennsylvania Coalition of Public Charter Schools. And now my newest endeavor is my book, A Venn Diagram of One, an American Story, that you can catch online, as well as in bookstores starting in August. Now, in my book, I talk about a lot of the themes that we'll be talking about today here during the Saturday session. And one of those themes is security. Now, as we well know, the Constitution requires us to provide for the common defense through securing the blessings of liberty for all Americans. And that mission is one that Victoria Coates has been dedicated to throughout her career. Victoria is vice president of the Catherine and Shelby Cullum Davis Institute for National Security and Foreign Policy at the Heritage Foundation. She is also the former deputy national security advisor to President Donald Trump. She's coupled her years of experience as a national security advisor to geopolitical strategists around the country after working in academia for years. This work has included serving as the senior national security advisor for U.S. Senator Ted Cruz. Please, if you will, put your hands together and welcome Victoria Coates.
Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you, Lenny, for that very kind introduction. Also, thank you to Loman and everybody who puts so much work all year long. I know what goes into it to make PLC such a resounding success every year. And I was just backstage talking to Loman a little bit. He's like, it always amazes me that early on a Saturday morning, we can have a room like this. And I think it just shows you how committed we are here in the Commonwealth to ensure that our state is well run, but also, I mean, what I'm going to talk to you about today are some more international affairs, but ones that I think are really central to what we're doing here in Pennsylvania. And you might wonder why I'm here. I am a native Lancastrian, born and bred there, and I have the distinguishing factor of being a direct descendant of both Hans Herr and Andrew Gregg Curtin. And so if you know anything about Philadelphia or Pennsylvania history, I go way back. So it's always wonderful to be here. So I know what's top of mind for everyone right now is the conflict in Iran that President Trump initiated exactly 6 weeks ago. It was a very dramatic, obviously, development for our country. I want to go into a little bit why I think he took that action. And again, I appreciate this opportunity to try my lines out because I just found out last night I will be joining Maria Bartiromo on Sunday on a network that will be nameless in this room of Newsmax to follow the president. So that's always a little daunting. So I appreciate the chance to try my lines out. But it's something that's been a long time coming. Those of us who are old enough to remember 1979, the hostage crisis, our diplomats held in Tehran for 444 days, only released on January 20th of 1981 as Ronald Reagan was sworn in as president. And that was not a coincidence. I think the mullahs, in the short time they had with President Jimmy Carter, were unimpressed with him. They did not feel they were dealing with an American president of strength, and they acted accordingly, doing one of the most horrible sort of crises that our country has gone through in modern times. And so I think that is what also President Trump observed. He's been talking about Iran for many, many years, decades even. And it was a problem we grappled with in the first term. And before I was Deputy National Security Advisor, I was his Senior Director for the Middle East and North Africa on the National Security Council staff. And so in that role, spent a lot of time with my colleagues implementing what we called the maximum pressure campaign on Iran. And the idea behind maximum pressure was to starve Iran of resources so they could not pursue a nuclear weapon. And we were told, primarily by our predecessors from the Obama administration, that it wasn't going to work, that unilateral American sanctions would not have the effect of the international sanctions that the Obama people had put on through the United Nations. And what we found was that was absolutely not true. We had enormous success squeezing Iran's oil exports down to around 200,000 barrels a day. We worked directly, particularly with Saudi, but other regional energy-producing counterparts to increase production. And nobody remembers the oil crisis of 2019 because it didn't happen. And that was one of the moments when the United States really realized our production put us in a different category. And I'll get to that in a little bit. And it obviously pertains to Pennsylvania very directly. And by the end of the president's first term, we literally had the Financial Times screaming headlines, Iran's economy on the verge of collapse. And when the Biden vote came in, we told them, you have maximum leverage right now. And in fact, we know that one of our regional partners from the Gulf, Qatar, actually went to the Biden administration and said, if you want to deal, keep this pressure on for another year. They will have to deal. They're going to collapse. And the Biden administration said, no, that's not how we're going to do it. We're going to stop enforcing sanctions. And they will come to the table because they will think that we are their friend. And then they don't have friends, spoiler alert. But that had the very negative effect, in my opinion, of releasing about $144 billion to the regime in Tehran. And that gave them an economic lifeline. But what did they do with it? They spent it on things like October 7th, 2023, financing that horrible Hamas attack on Israel, which also killed dozens of Americans. We had American hostages in Gaza. They didn't care. They didn't ask for anybody's passport. They just wanted to kill and attack Israel, a great ally of the United States. What they didn't do in Iran is invest in anything. They didn't invest in industry, growth, improvements to the lives of the Iranian people. And when President Trump came back in last year, he really went after them on the sanctions again. And it wasn't really remarked, but we had two major bank failures in Iran in October. We then had the breakout of protests in December and early January, which were largely financial. That wasn't really a political movement. That was folks in the bazaar who couldn't sell their goods and make their money back. So you sell a carton of milk for $1.50. By the time you process that transaction, what you took in is only worth 75 cents because of the rampant inflation and the devaluation of the real. And so that's what created the crisis. And, it was interesting, we had the crackdown on the Iranian people, some tens of thousands killed, unprecedented brutality from the regime, because they know they have problems they can't fix. So I think when the president decided it was time to take direct action, that was prompted by revelations about their ongoing nuclear work. And he's been very clear. The whole issue here is the nuclear weapon. We tolerate hostile regimes around the world that don't have nuclear weapons, and we don't go in and try to bomb them into the Stone Ages. The relentless pursuit of a nuclear weapon by the Iranians are what make them different. And nobody wants another North Korea. Would we even know Kim Jong-un's name if he didn't have a nuclear weapon? Probably not. And so I don't really want to know the next Ayatollah's name. I want them to not have a nuclear weapon, not threaten Israel and the United States. And I think that's really been the president's bottom line. And Operation Epic Fury, regardless of what the New York Times may be telling you, has been by every conceivable metric a military success. It's really been incredible what they've been able to do, particularly to the nuclear sites. They've also bombed some academic sites. And so, again, the Times will tell you, oh my gosh, they bombed a university. Well, Sharif University is their head research and development center for their nuclear program. That had to be taken out. And that's what no one has done before. And so, we have this extraordinary military success. And then we have, the fact that the economic problems in Iran are getting worse, not better. They've had their internet shut down for more than 1,000 hours. Their stock exchange has been shut since the first week in March, as has their mercantile exchange where they exchange commodities. De minimis activity on their energy exchange. Nobody knows what's going to happen when they turn that thing back on. And I think what you'll probably see is historic capital flight out of Iran and potentially economic collapse. And so that's the context for the negotiations that will play out in Islamabad over this weekend. The Iranians have one card at this point, and that is their control over the Strait of Hormuz. This is a declining asset because everybody has noticed what's been going on over the last 5 weeks, how they are willing to hold the world's energy markets hostage by bottling up that critical strait. And people are looking at alternatives. We have the Saudi East-West pipeline across the Arabian Peninsula, Petroline, which they actually built in the early 80s, which was very, very smart, a good lesson to all of us to build lots of pipelines. It's important. But that has been moving about 7 million barrels a day. And there's a plan afoot to do a corresponding natural gas pipeline across the peninsula to which Qatar would have access as well. And so we could move a lot of natural gas bypassing the strait. So I think you're not going to see another one of these crises in the future, but that doesn't mean it isn't a crisis now. And we've all seen the gas prices and electricity prices start to creep up. And this is a problem. And one of the places where it's been a really big problem, and I think this is a cautionary tale for us here in Pennsylvania, has been in Europe. And we've seen the really shocking and feckless behavior of what I worked for Rumsfeld, so I call old Europe, as they've tried to out-Neville Chamberlain each other in their surrender to this energy blackmail. And their genius solution to their problem is to import more Russian gas, thereby fueling the war on the continent of Europe, the last time I looked, in Ukraine. And so this, I think, has to be a warning to us in Pennsylvania because this is all self-inflicted by the Europeans. The Germans have turned off their nuclear plants because they're so pure, and they refuse to turn them back on. And they're now experiencing deindustrialization. The prices in the UK for energy are astronomically high because they will not drill for their natural gas assets because of these extreme climate agendas. And so as I look at us here in Pennsylvania, and we all know how much natural gas we could produce, it's really striking to me. We marked last month the 10th anniversary of the first export of LNG from Louisiana. 10 years ago, nobody knew what could happen in terms of the natural gas revolution and how that can be the fuel of the future. And by the way, it has the added advantage of being great for the climate. A lot of what we've experienced in terms of reduced emissions over that decade have come because of the conversion to nice, clean Pennsylvania natural gas. And so, as we look at that cautionary tale of Europe and think about the projects we should be developing here in Pennsylvania. Josh Shapiro doesn't take my calls on a regular basis, but if he did, I would ask him, why are you allowing the local governments in Delaware County to sue into submission what should be one of the most active active LNG export terminals on the planet to surge that gas across the Atlantic to save the Europeans, since they won't save themselves. And why are you holding that up? And I mean, the answer is climate justice. Like, what is that? We can't afford that at this point. We need to get this product to market. We need to do this for partners and allies. And I'll just close with one, I think, excellent example of this, which is India, the world's largest democracy, now well over 1 billion people, larger than mainland China at this point, a great and good friend to the United States that I think we should be cultivating. And when Prime Minister Modi came to Washington in 2023, he asked then President Biden for more exports of natural gas to come to India to help them with their climate, help them with their energy security. And President Biden said, no, we're not going to do any more exports. As a matter of fact, we're going to freeze exports. We're not going to give any more licenses, and we don't have a free trade agreement with you, India, so you're going to be under that ban. So you're not going to get any. You need to fuel that billion-plus people on renewables. And that is then when India started turning to Russia for energy supplies. And Russia is now one of their major suppliers. They were not when we left office in 2021. Now that is a major problem we have to deal with. But we could be filling those contracts for India out of Pennsylvania. So I think that is a bright future for us if we have new leadership that will not sort of put us under this yoke of wokeness, but rather looks at Pennsylvania as literally that keystone for American energy security. So enjoy the conference. It's great to see you all. Thank you very much.